don't know what to say. I thought today we're just going to sit here and talk last night's Sixers game, have a nice little NFL draft conversation with Brenden Deeg. Then, boom, Howie Roseman decides to steal the headlines in Philly and announce the extension of one Mr. Jalen Hurts. Trending in the AM, talking Eagles, and only Eagles, starts in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Well, not Twitch anymore. Philadelphia. Live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. Do me that favor. Head over to the Philadelphia Sports Network YouTube page. Hit the like button, the subscribe button. Best place to get interactive with the show. And we've got lots of interaction to get to today. As yes, Hurts, a mega deal. Has been signed, has been locked up. It is official. Jalen Hurts is going to be a Philadelphia Eagle for a long time. Something we did not doubt was going to happen. I am your host of Trending in the AM every single day, Phil Stifle. You can follow me on Twitter at Beard and Knowledge. For now, I got my main man, Jason Voorhees at Mustang3651 joining me at 9 a.m. live from the Score. NFL news editor Brenden Deeg will be joining me to go into this even more. But yeah, I mean, it's like we do a show. After a show, I walk my dogs, I drive to work, I get to work, and my phone just starts blowing up with 100 people texting me, yo, Jalen Hurts is locked up. I'm like, let's push all my actual work aside and let's stay focused on what the hell is happening. And yes, Jason, yesterday, out of left field, stealing the headlines in Philly, Jalen Hurts is a Philadelphia Eagle. 5 years, $255 million, $179 million guaranteed. Jason, when you heard the news break, what did you think there?
I mean, I was in my car. I had just got coffee at Wawa. I happened to throw on the radio. I don't generally listen to it much, but I was like, let me hear what's on the sports radio. And like 2 seconds later, after I turn it on, breaking news, Jalen Hurts, and I'm like, what? Now then I just, of course, start searching Twitter like we all do, us analysts. And, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, when I first saw the deal, I'm like, obviously we knew it was going to be big, but, 51 million, obviously, I don't know all the details at the time. I'm just like seeing what it was. And, I'm like, okay, well, he got his money. I mean, He deserves it. I'm happy for Jalen Hurts. I mean, honestly, I don't think there's too many people that really deserve that more than him. The hard work that he's put in, obviously he was at a point when he was when he almost quit football. Like when that whole thing went down with Tua, I mean, he could have just put his head in the sand and just said, that's it. That's a wrap. And he didn't. He worked hard and he deserves it. So I'm happy.
You stole what I wanted to say. My initial thoughts were going to be, it's just such a great story. Like we'll get into the contract in a second and what it means, but just to think of the story that he went from Alabama and getting benched and cut and transferring to Oklahoma. He was told it was a reach to draft him in the second round. He was a backup quarterback. He took over a bad team. Like the story of Jalen Hurts' success and his ladder. It's so great to see because you see only the negative stories in the world today. And to see an inspirational story of him overcoming odds after overcoming odds after overcoming obstacles to becoming, in 3 short years, for the moment, the highest paid player in NFL history. It's such a great, positive, uplifting story, and it just goes to show hard work does pay off if you put it in.
Absolutely,
and it's a remarkable story.
Well, yeah, and then on top of that, it's remarkable. But like, if he was just like a normal guy that wasn't like super nice and how he is with the media, you would be happy. But like that to me adds an extra layer to it. Just the fact that he's so mature, and the way that he has just he's a leader. He's a natural born leader, and I'm happy. I mean, I couldn't listen. It could be any quarterback, and we obviously would be saying we're happy, but like you said, that extra layer just makes it that much more, remarkable to me that, we're at.
You know what's remarkable to me, and it's something that's not getting spoken about much here, is the fact that, we're joking that, the Phillies took off so Hurts could have his moment to shine. But what's remarkable is actually that it came out of left field. Like, Aaron Rodgers situation, Lamar Jackson situation. All these situations are handled through the media. This person crying, that person crying. We knew a Jalen Hurts deal was going to get done. There's no doubt about it. Whether it got done yesterday, whether it got done June 1st, whether it got done in training camp, Jalen Hurts was going to get his extension. It was just a matter of how much and when. And it was done privately. There was not one leak from anybody in any front office. It's not like, one of those crazy agents like Drew Rosenhaus leaks stuff to the media to try to help in negotiations. Everything was kept so quiet and professional. And I'm sure there was tough negotiations on it, each side. I want this. I want this. Jalen Hurts wanted the first no-trade clause in Eagles history. I'm sure there was a lot of back and forth on that. But it was all kept in-house. And I think that's the thing that we underestimate is Jalen Hurts' maturity and his understanding of how to do things the right way and still get what's owed to you. You know what I mean? I think that is going to be a story that's under-talked about, that no one knew this was dropping. This was just like, boom, out of left field.
I mean, and to add to your point, like that just shows you the amazingness, the magician-like element of Howie Roseman. Because, like, you're seeing all these tweets coming out, like, now, like, with, like, the details and the further details of the contract and, like, how it breaks down. And you're looking at the cap space and you're like, oh, my God, it's not near as bad as I was expecting. I saw the one, there was somebody that compared it to Daniel Jones, and it was like, the Giants are paying like double a year for Daniel Jones than what we're paying for Jalen Hurts.
No, we're going to have to see. I mean, the rumors are we've only seen the cap hits for the first 4 years, which means the cap hits in the last 2 years are literally going to be in the $70, $80 million range. But guess what? The salary cap will be over $300 million by then. And those are voidable years, restructurable years. We're not going to pay $80 million a year to Jalen Hurts. So anybody that's worried just doesn't have to worry. I look at it like this. The Eagles have been in the top 2 or 3 in dead cap money every single. Last year we had almost $60 million, and everybody talked about the Carson Wentz dead cap year, and we still were able to make the playoffs in 2021 with that big dead cap. We had the second or third most dead cap last year, almost $60 million. We still built a Super Bowl roster. So having that dead cap money pushed down the line does not put you in a position where you can't still have a successful football team. You just have to have the right leaders. And the cap maneuverability of Howie Roseman, and I saw somebody else tweeted out that his assistant, Rosenberg, doesn't get any credit, but he's basically the numbers guy for Howie Roseman. I mean, you can make fun of the Daniel Jones situation all you want, but, I mean, Howie Roseman, to be able to get this deal done the way he got it done, and what have I talked about so far this offseason, Jason? The window of opportunity, the win now opportunity is there because of the timing for them to win this year, next year. Like, as the picture stands now, they have a better chance of winning another Super Bowl or at least reaching the Super Bowl over the next 2 years than the last 3 years of the deal, just as the way the league is. And you still have so much flexibility to continue to do that right now.
And so when this news dropped, I couldn't help myself but go to my first thought that, okay, they went all in now on Hurts. Do not be surprised if we don't get Bijan. I know that's been like the whole huge rumor going around, this and that, yada, yada, yada. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to take him at 10, but I do think that once you sign your quarterback to that kind of contract, you're going to do the best you can to surround them with talent. That's one thing they didn't do with Wentz. And I'm not like saying Wentz wasn't an issue.
That's kind of what I was saying yesterday, too, was like, just go all in, make the greatest offense of all time. Look, I do want to say one thing, and I'm going to ask Brenden this when he joins us at 9 a.m., that I don't think this contract of Hurts changes anything on the offseason. I think Howie had a plan this offseason. The Jalen Hurts extension, he knew, just like we knew, it was going to get done. Like their plan was get the Jalen Hurts deal done now or later, draft X, Y, and Z type players, trade or sign X, Y, and Z free agents. And this, to me, does not affect it. So if Bijan Robinson, as you say, go get him for Hurts, then that was already part of the plan, in my opinion. Whatever happens over the next month or two, in my opinion, was all part of the plan, whether Jalen Hurts' deal got done now or later. Do you get what I'm saying there?
Oh, I agree. I just think, like I said, I think when there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, when you're rumors, like, they're not just coming out of nowhere. Like, and listen, I could be totally off base. They could draft that offensive lineman that nobody wants them to draft.
I have no problem with them drafting an offensive lineman.
That would not be out of the realm of possibility. We know Howie Roseman's MO with the trenches. So I'm just saying, like, as a fan, who wouldn't want that shiny new toy for Hurts? I mean, you'd be nuts to say that you wouldn't. I get it, the whole argument about, you shouldn't draft a first-round running back, blah, blah, blah. And maybe they don't even get Bijan. Maybe they go after the other guy, the guy
Gibbs from Alabama. I put it out there yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the wide receiver either. I mean, you need a slot wide receiver. You got to upgrade Quez Watkins. Like, you're not going to spend 179 guaranteed, $255 million on your quarterback and not put him in a position to be the best quarterback in the league. You know what I mean? So, you go out and you surround him with as much talent as possible. I mean, maybe that's the play. Look, the Eagles have 6 premier, that's first and second round picks, 6 picks in the first and second round over the next 2 years. They're going to continue to build around Jalen Hurts, and you're going to need cheap weapons around him. A.J. Brown's making a lot of money. Devontae Smith next year will be getting the big contract extension. So going out and getting another young wide receiver that's cheap and on a rookie deal is kind of an important thing to do, honestly, at this point. You've already got the offensive line. You've got the veterans, Kelsey, Lane Johnson, but you've got the youth, and you've got some youth behind them that can step up in Cam Jurgens and Jack Driscoll. So, drafting offensive linemen would be Howie's MO, and I would not be surprised if they did. But, again, the window to win now is open. You go and get the weapons. Right now, this offense is the best in the NFC at this moment. But is this offense, with no more additions, the best in the NFL? I don't think so.
I agree, and I think, you mentioned the high end picks. They also have quite a few picks. I think in totality next year they have 12, if I'm not mistaken.
12 draft picks, 5 in the 5th round.
So if you look at Howie's track record, he's almost done better at those later round picks than he does early. Like, listen, early picks sometimes are hit or miss. We all know that. Right. It's not just Howie. That's across the NFL. Like, people could say, oh, Howie, he screwed up on Justin Jefferson. I'm sure you can look at every single GM and say that they screwed up on something where take somebody and, it's easy to kind of harp on that. But you're right. Like, that wide receiver position is still important. I remember last year we signed, Zach Pascal to a really cheap deal, and he was a decent complimentary type player, but he wasn't that, higher end guy that you were going to really need in the future because, like you said, it's easy when you have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, but once defenses start keying on those guys, you need other guys that are going to be able to kind of, come in and kind of take up that, the slack. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, you've been saying that for a couple of years. Like, hey, just because they drafted a wide receiver this year doesn't mean they're not going to do it.
Honestly, I think if Howie Roseman had his way, he would draft a wide receiver every year. I think if Howie Roseman had his way, he would draft a wide receiver and a left tackle every single year, and he'd be very happy. And honestly, I mean, I put it out there on Twitter last night, and it's funny. Some people that I haven't talked to in a long time responded to it. How far we've come in the Howie Roseman debate. It wasn't too many years ago that literally 98%, I'm saying 98% because I know one person, no comment, I think you get that, was the only one that I know of that was a pro Howie from day one. But there was a lot of people in this city ready to write Howie Roseman off. saying the hashtag Fire Howie, conversation went on for a long time. We have come so far, and I don't think you'd find many people in the city of Philadelphia that would say something negative about Howie Roseman at this point. I don't think you can find him, because between the way he's retooled versus rebuilding this team, gotten this team to 2 Super Bowls, and now he went from drafting and signing a franchise quarterback, that quarterback completely collapsing and falling, and in a few short years, you're right back. I mean, there were people that said that after the whole Carson Wentz debacle, that Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie would never commit long-term to a quarterback again. This contract with the no trade clause in it confirms that they're ready to commit to a quarterback already again.
Yeah, and it's just funny that when Jalen Hurts was drafted, I think in their mind, they already kind of knew. I really believe that. I do. I don't think they would have drafted Jalen Hurts if they didn't know already that Carson Wentz was kind of not going to succeed.
It's so funny because somebody, I forget which one of the draft experts, somebody pulled up their NFL draft tweet of the Eagles drafting Jalen Hurts from 2020, and somebody shared it out today. And you go through it, and all the tweets from 3 years ago of what everybody, Carson's already washed, or poor Jalen Hurts. Like, there's so many pro and con comments. And I was like, everybody likes to expose old takes. But, man, reading through those comments on that, and how time was, it was literally just 3 years ago. And times were so different. And
it's insane.
I don't even know what to think about how the change, like, people call me a flip-flopper for lots of different reasons. This is like more than just flip-flopping an opinion. This is a guy completely, I talk about it with the Sixers. And last night the Sixers won Game 2 of the NBA playoffs. And we'll talk about it later this week, the NBA playoffs more. Today is just Eagles talk. But, I talk about changing the opinion and, like, changing the narrative of Doc Rivers in Philly, his legacy, James Harden's legacy. Howie Roseman has completely flipped the script on his narrative and legacy in this city. And it's kind of crazy to see.
Absolutely. I mean, you talked about people like being on the Bash Howie train. I had changed my Twitter name at one point to Fire Howie.
I'm not surprised. Knowing that, I'm not surprised.
That's how crazy it was, though. And you're right. There was a ton of us. And I will admit today that I was totally wrong. And I listen, I can't say I was wrong on Hurts, though, because me and you, we were pro Hurts from day one. So
hey, the first tweet that I back before I started doing all this, and I had like 5 followers, and I just followed a bunch of news reporters. The first tweet I ever had that blew up sort of was the moment they drafted Hurts, and I put out a tweet in my support of Jalen Hurts. I didn't put out a tweet saying I wanted Hurts to be the starter, because I was also a big Carson Wentz fan. I just put out a pro Jalen Hurts tweet that he is the real deal, and it kind of exploded a little bit. That was the first moment when people started clicking follow on my name, and I just it's a reward to us that have been sticking by his side, but I don't want to make it about, because there were plenty of reasons why other people were against Hurts. He checked all the boxes that said he wasn't an NFL starting quarterback. The only box he didn't check, or the box he checked in our favor, was the leadership, the hard work, the intangibles. And we always just believed the intangibles would win out in the end. And it has. I mean, it has.
Say anything else. I mean, the fact of the matter is, like you said, he's already been in a Super Bowl. Now, obviously, his legacy will still be, can he win a Super Bowl? That's all the way. Once you get this contract, now you kind of have to live up to it, because that's the whole thing.
I mean, because what you're saying there was what I was going to go. It was a remarkable rise last year that he went on. There's going to be points in his career, maybe next year, where he regresses potentially a little bit. There is risk in this contract, is there not?
I mean, that was my first thought. Because once you listen, at the end of the day, yes, he did. He worked. He put in all the hard work. We've talked about it. We all know. I mean, anyone that knows Jalen Hurts knows that his is a remarkable story. But like you said, once that contract is signed and set in stone, now it's like you're held to another standard. Mm-hmm. Like, now you are expected to be in the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. Exactly. Now you are expected to win a Super Bowl. Like, it's not, okay, can Jalen do it? Now it's he better do it. Like,
yeah, like, is there even room for him to get any better? Like, and again, I'm not trying to be negative because I'm not. I'm just trying to make sure we bring up the other side of the. You just committed 5 years, $255 million, a no trade clause. You know, he increased from 2021 to 2022. I cannot think of any player in any Philadelphia sports team that had that much of an ascent in 1 year. To go from a guy that we were considering trading for Russell Wilson because Jalen Hurts wasn't the guy to an MVP. He finished second in the MVP. I mean, he went from like the 17th best quarterback in football to second in MVP in one offseason. He's not going to take that big of a jump again. In fact, the odds do say that he could regress, not a lot, but a little bit. And even if he regresses to the 5th best quarterback in football, he's still worth every penny. Because let's be honest, $255 million is not going to be that much money when Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson sign their deals later this offseason.
no, absolutely true.
But the highest paid guy in not too long time.
I listen, I can understand that, but I also will say that knowing now that there is more responsibility and there is more expected of you, I think that also signifies why Howie will continue to surround him with weapons. Because I think you have to learn from past mistakes. And listen, we can't say that Carson Wentz wasn't a major part of his own demise. We can't also ignore the fact that the Eagles did not really surround him with a lot of weapons when he did get that contract. He had, if you don't remember, when he had that season with the 4,000 yards and he did it with all those practice squad guys. I mean,
Greg Ward, Austin Scott.
You cannot say that they didn't kind of make a mistake there in a sense that they didn't really put in the players around him.
And also, the other risk, like I just said, is the injury risk, too. You can't ignore that some of Carson's demise was the first the knee, then the concussion, then the happy feet from all. Like, there's a lot that goes into the demise of a player. Now, Carson didn't have the intangibles. There's no doubt about it. He wasn't a leader. He didn't put the extra work in. Jalen Hurts has that. But all the other things, the weapons around him and the injuries, are things that Howie's going to have to continue to do and manage around Jalen Hurts to make sure that we get our money's worth out of this contract.
Yes, sir. I mean, I honestly, I'd like to see Jalen Hurts, and to your point that you said that there could be expected regression. If I was banking on it, I would think that I'm expecting a similar type season. Maybe not as
again, the Jalen Hurts fan in me says he's the joke I made yesterday was that, you know, that when he signed his contract, it was in the middle of him doing a chest exercise. Like, he finished his bench presses, put the bar back, signed the contract, took a picture, then went back to doing his next set of, because that's just the kind of work ethic that he has. He's never content. When he wins one Super Bowl, he's going to want two. When he wins two, he's going to want three. When he wins an MVP, he's going to want to win a second. But I think that does go around what we've been talking about. Surround him with weapons, protecting him is the draft. And I can't wait till Brenden joins us here in a few minutes, because the draft is directly influenced now that you've invested in Howie Roseman. Or in Howie Roseman's invested in Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and when there's players that sign these mega deals, like whoever it is, with any sport, there's a lot of examples where players sign and they get the bag, and then the next they shit the bed. If there's anybody that I would think of in my mind that would be the exact opposite of that, it will be Hurts. So if I was a betting man, I would bet on Hurts every day of the week to even get better, because listen, and I know, you know, baseball is a little bit different than football because it's more of an individualized sport as opposed to being a team sport. But you think of a guy like Nick Castellanos, like the Phillies gave him $100 million. Now, I know it's not $279 million, but $100 million is still a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we looked at his season last year and we said, wow, he truly, I don't want to say the word shit the bed, but he was not a good player. And so far this year, he hasn't been really living up to that contract. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm not comparing them in the two, but I think the fact that Hurts has that leadership and has that aura about him and that work ethic, that will not allow him to get into that kind of that area where he's regressing to the point where it's like, oh my God. And us as fans are like, why did the Eagles do this? Why did they give him the money? Mm-hmm. If I'm a betting man, I'd be willing to think, and I hope, listen, I could be wrong, but I do think this Eagles team will win a Super Bowl with Hurts. It's almost a foregone.
The window is open for them to do that in the next year or two, for sure. We don't know what the next 3 to 5 years is going to hold because you don't know what's going to happen in the rest of the NFL. But the window for them to be the leader in the clubhouse these next 2 years, it's right there. There's no doubt about it. It's just they'll have to see whether they can compete with the Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals and Buffalo. To think about it, Patrick Mahomes is now like the 8th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Josh Allen is the 10th highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and Jalen Hurts is now the number 1 paid quarterback in the NFL. And he was literally, benched 5 years ago. And he is now the highest paid player. I just love success stories and happy endings. Like we could have easily a year or two ago had to come on a show like this and be like, yeah, we're wrong. Jalen Hurts was a bust. You know what I mean? And we could have easily done that. And more people would have been on the other side of the equation than the apology side of the equation. And I'm not one to rub it in people's faces. There are content creators that are like, see, I was right, you were wrong, you're whatever. But to me, it's just simple. I'm just glad that the story so far has had a happy ending. The story's not over, but the story arc right now is at the happy part of the story. It's just it really is really remarkable. Now Howie's got to get back to work. Now Howie's got to figure out, do you go get Budda Baker to play safety? Do you go get Devin White to play linebacker? Do you draft Bijan Robinson or the wide receiver? Like Howie's work, like Howie celebrated. Probably had like a nice little steak dinner last night, but he's right back to work today because there's still so much work to get done. And the draft is what, a week away now?
Next Thursday, right?
Yeah, next Thursday. So, we're right there. So the work is not finished for Howie Roseman at this point.
No,
it's just beginning because once you give out that deal, you talk about the pressure on Jalen Hurts. The pressure's on Howie too. Hey, Jeff, I need a check for $255 million. Jeff looks at him and says, what? Yeah, $255. That's what I need on the check. All right, you better pay it all. You know what I mean? Like, there is pressure now for Howie Roseman to succeed.
Yeah, Jeff him is okay. Full ring.
Yeah, seriously, this question, when was there a success story like this? There really is none that I can see that is the story of Jalen Hurts' quick ascension, Howie Roseman going from villain to hero, and all this happened in a short period of time. I personally, I'm 42 years old, been watching sports since the 80s. I don't know a redemption story like Howie Roseman's or a story arc like Jalen Hurts that has happened in Philadelphia sports, because there's not. McNabb's story didn't end well. Wentz's did not end well. There's no redemption arc like this in the Phillies organization. You know what I mean? So, I don't know where the story is that would compare to this.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. But
this is like a Hallmark movie, like made for TV movie that's happened here.
Yeah, and listen, I know we're kind of glorifying Hurts, and rightfully so, but
right.
Shout out to his agent for being.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
First female agent to get a deal of that magnitude.
Absolutely. The deal there and the way it got done. Yeah, the whole entire agent and the whole team around Jalen Hurts, the whole female team was excellent. We're going to cut off right there, Jason. I'm going to put you off to the side here. Here at Trending the AM, again, on Philadelphia Sports Network. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video. Joining me now on the I Have No Sponsor hotline is my man, Brenden Deeg, lead NFL news editor for The Score. Friend of the show. Good morning, Brenden. Glad to have you back on.
Phil, what's going on, my man?
I'm doing great today, and I'm pretty sure you are doing well as well, because yesterday, obviously, huge news broke with this Jalen Hurts contract. And I know you're like, you got this mental mind thing because you and Howie Roseman are on the same wavelength, and you predict literally every move that Howie Roseman makes. But you did not have Jalen Hurts sign his extension yesterday, did you?
No, I actually thought this was going to be coming in May or June. I thought this was something that would be coming after the NFL draft, something Eagles fans can kind of look forward to after all the dust settles from the 3 days of the NFL draft. So it's kind of a surprise. It's funny. I've been working out with a personal trainer trying to get in a little summer shape, and I was filling up my water bottle, look at my phone right before the session started, and I saw the new Jalen Hurts contract extension broken. I was like, well, this couldn't have been worse timing for me, but it was a pleasant surprise, and it was a cool day to be an Eagles fan yesterday.
It really was. And I was talking about earlier in the show, and when I scheduled you to come on the show, it was because the draft's here, and I wanted to talk about the draft and stuff, and we will in a second. But obviously Jalen Hurts news, trumps everything, and it's the surprise of it happening. It's the fact that there were no leaks. There was no, you didn't hear rumors about it. You didn't hear any battles going on between Howie and the agents. Just the professionalism and the quiet and the way everything. There's no drama with this organization or this team or around Jalen Hurts, and I really think that that's a storyline that will go ignored in this whole entire contract extension.
Yeah, they kept things really quiet. Even I don't know if you saw yesterday that Adam Schefter tweeted out the cap hits for the contract. Adam Schefter and Howie Roseman are pretty tight together. And Howie shares his information to Schefter. It's kind of how the two sides have gone together. Schefter does a really good job of leaking stuff, and you never saw any of that until after the contract was actually done. So I think the Eagles did a very good job. And shout out to Nicole Lynn, Jalen Hurts' agent. I thought she did a very good job on her end of keeping things tight between Jalen Hurts' camp and the media. So yeah, it was a pretty calm and smooth negotiation. It sounds like. I'm assuming that things probably got pretty heated at some point when there's this much money involved. There's definitely some arguments and some discussions that take a while. So it kind of sounds like this was started to get negotiated basically right after the Super Bowl, maybe. Like, this stuff does take a while. So what was that? How long was the Super Bowl? That was 2 months ago? Yeah, about 2 months.
It feels like a long time ago. I've moved on. We've moved on.
So this is something that's been in the works for since then. So yeah, I think kind of an under talked about storyline for this is just how smooth the transition or smooth the negotiation has been. Just look at other quarterbacks, especially Lamar Jackson's situation, right? Like, avoiding that kind of nonsense, I think was pretty cool for the Eagles and the Eagles fan base.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was going to say. The Lamar Jackson, the Aaron Rodgers, you constantly see in so many organizations the drama play out through the media, the contracts play out through the media, and I've always talked about Jalen Hurts' intangibles in the locker room and as a man, not just as a football player, and how important it is, and how this played out. Again, like surprised, blown away, and the fact that honestly, I think it's a kind of I want to get your thoughts on the contract itself. It's a pretty fair contract, both sides. He gets to be the highest paid player for now. He gets a security with his no trade clause. Howie figured out a way to finagle the salary cap. I mean, we'll see what the numbers are like in 2027, but we'll deal with that bridge when we cross it. The contract, I think, works out for both sides pretty well.
Yeah, so there's kind of two ways you can look at this. So let's start with the money and the contract side of things. So he's now officially the highest paid player in the NFL, in NFL history. Pretty wild to think about when you just looking back at 2020. I threw a clip on Twitter of him being used as a gadget player in a Thursday night game against the Giants in 2020. So just going from that to become the highest paid NFL player is pretty remarkable. I actually do think the money is fair, and only $179 million that guaranteed. He had $110 million signed right out at the gate, which I think is an important distinct because you can now push the rest of that money to future years. So it gives the Eagles flexibility with having $110 million signed at the snap of a finger. And a lot of owners in the NFL aren't willing to do that. Like, I don't know if you know this, but the Joe Burrow is also going to be negotiating a contract extension. And the Cincinnati Bengals are a very, very cheap organization,
right? Not
like other organizations. So they're going to, I want to be in the room of the Cincinnati Bengals ownership when they have to pay that $110 million, whatever signing bonus up front. They're not going to be too happy about it. So just Jeffrey Lurie and Eagles ownership being willing to kind of sign that big fat check right out the gate, I think gave the Eagles flexibility and what they can do to push money to future years, like I said. And I do believe the money is fair. But however, the money is a lot. Like, you are getting $51 million per season to a player. That's a lot of money. Now, the other way to look at this is the player. Like, how did Jalen Hurts deserve this contract? I believe he did. I think he earned this contract. I haven't been a Jalen Hurts skepticist, but I was skeptical going into this year. I was okay with the idea of them looking at Russell Wilson. The Deshaun Watson thing pushed me in a negative way. I didn't want him in the Eagles jersey, but like if you just rewind to last offseason when the Russell Wilson stuff was happening, me and myself included and other Eagles fans were kind of intrigued by the idea of maybe having Russell Wilson come to Philadelphia. I was not sold on Jalen Hurts. I thought after that Tampa Bay Buccaneers playoff game, I was really worried. It was a really bad offensive performance. Jalen Hurts looked lost. Todd Bowles' defense screwed with his head a lot. He didn't really. He looked like a young quarterback who didn't belong in that situation. So going into this year, I always said going into 2022, I always said there was, in my opinion, about a 50-50 chance that Jalen Hurts is a starting quarterback in 2023. I thought it was that close, and he completely proved me wrong. I think the stretch to look at is I can't remember if it was like the Pittsburgh Steelers game week 8 was a dominant performance. He looked great in that game. You can also go back to like week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings. That game was awesome as well. But it was kind of that, I think it was the Titans, Packers, and Giants in that 3-game stretch where Jalen Hurts didn't turn the ball over. He had like over 1,000 total yards, like 11 touchdowns, something like that. He was so dominant in that stretch. And when I went back and watched Eagles film after the season, that really stood out to me is how well-oiled the Eagles offense is like a well-oiled machine during that stretch, and it was led by Jalen Hurts, and he was a top 3 quarterback in the NFL last year. He's only 24 right now. I think he's gonna be 25 before the season starts. I don't know exactly how old he is, but this is the type of guy you pay, and I think that it's a big bet. Like there's a lot of money that they're betting on, and I think it's the right bet to make. Now,
I think, and that's one of the first DMs. I was getting messages from a bunch of people left and right about asking my thoughts. And one of them I got was obviously Hurts' ascension last year. I mean, we were just talking before you joined the show. I can't think of a moment in Philadelphia sports, period, where a player took the jump that Jalen Hurts did. You say from a gadget guy to almost the MVP. I mean, and just from 2021 to 2022, I was one of his biggest supporters. But even I couldn't have foreseen this jump. Mm-hmm. You kind of got to think to an extent there might be a slim chance that there is some form of regression there. And so you are taking a risk signing a $255 million contract with somebody where there is no, you can't, compare Jalen Hurts' success to somebody else and be like, well, here's a former example of what happens when a player takes this jump. This is the first time in my mind that anything like this has ever happened. So there is risk on the Eagles' part too.
100%. Just go look back at the Carson Wentz contract. Like history, they're kind of repeating them. Like, I don't want to compare Jalen Hurts to Carson Wentz as players at all. And I think that's really important here because I was a big Carson Wentz believer. I thought Carson Wentz deserved that contract at the time as well. But there's something different about Jalen Hurts' mindset, his psyche, and how he deals with players. Like Carson Wentz always kind of had that stink behind him of not being a leader and not working hard and whatnot. And Jalen Hurts is the complete opposite of that. And the Eagles, for them to dish out the Carson Wentz contract in 2019, and then after all the disaster that happened with it, where they had to trade him, they had to eat $34 million in dead cap in 2021. They had to do that after the disaster that 2020 was in general. For them to kind of make the same bet on a player like that they drafted just a few years ago goes to show how much they trust Jalen Hurts in the building as well. And I think it's important for Eagles fans, if you're worried like there's some Jalen Hurts regression coming, that the Eagles are making this bet just after what happened with the Carson Wentz disaster. So Jalen Hurts feels different as a player, in my opinion, than Wentz did in 2019. Because even after the 2019 season, I thought Wentz played unreal, but there was still so much kind of worry about the talent around him and whatnot. And I don't think there's any worry about that. Just if you just take a look at the Eagles, who the Eagles have signed until the 2024 season, like this roster is intact. This is a 3-year bet, in my opinion, maybe even a 2-year bet, because the way the contract is structured is they can kind of, after 2 or 3 years, they can kind of take a deep breath, go back to the drawing board and say, hey, what do we do? Do we try to extend Jalen Hurts' contract to maybe lower some cap hits? Do we let the contract play out because our team's not very good? And maybe something happens, Jalen Hurts, he gets injured, anything at all. Like their way that they set it up, they can be so flexible going forward.
So it's funny because you bring up the Carson Wentz and not surrounding him properly. The thing I've been talking about this whole offseason so far is there is a window now. There's a win now window for them, and you've got a lot of draft picks, and you've still got some cap space this year. Maybe not big picture cap space, but you do this year. The Eagles should be going all in at this point. You've got 6 premium picks over the next 2 years. God, what are we up to? Like 12 picks now next year total.
12 draft picks next year. Yeah.
I mean, you've been on the same wavelength with Howie Roseman and predicting things so accurately the last 2 years. I think this deal was getting done no matter what, but I don't think it affects what the game plan was for Howie Roseman this offseason. I still think whatever happens today, tomorrow, or in the draft, or 2 weeks after the draft was all part of the plan no matter what, because they knew they'd get the deal done.
Yeah.
They just didn't know the final X's and O's. And you kind of need to use this next 2 to 4 to 6 weeks to continue to go all in now to maximize this window right now, right?
Agreed. And they know this contract was coming. Everything that Howie Roseman has done this offseason was in the back of his head, knowing that Jalen Hurts was going to get extended at some point. So all the cheap free agent contracts that they've signed, they've been pretty frugal with signing outside free agents, even frugal with bringing back CJ Gardner-Johnson, right? Like they didn't give him the deal that he wanted. So I actually think that they're going to be pretty aggressive over the next couple of weeks. And I think there's going to be some wheeling and dealing done here. Budda Baker is a name that's been thrown around a lot. I like Budda Baker more than the next guy. He's one of my favorite non-Eagles in the NFL. He's really exciting to watch. So just from the name aspect of things, I would love to see him in Eagles uniform. And I do think it's somewhat possible, depending on how much money he wants.
So there was Budda Baker, and there's obviously Devin White. Some people want White the linebacker, some want Budda Baker. What would it cost the Eagles? What do you think realistically it would take to make a trade for somebody like Budda Baker or Devin White, if you like that? I know a lot of people are on the Baker side of things as the bigger.
Yeah, I'm out on Devin White. I actually don't think he's worth trading for and signing a contract to. He's a free agent at the end of this year. He's playing on the 5th-year option. I think he's a very overrated player. I know he's exciting and he makes splash plays, especially when kind of coming downhill in the blitz, but he's bad in coverage. I think he had like a 120 point something passer rating allowed in coverage last year. I don't think he's worth it. I don't think that's the swing that Howie will take. I think Budda Baker is probably the more likely outcome. And just he's 27 years old. He's 2-time first-team All-Pro. I think he's like a 5-time Pro Bowler. The Eagles, when they signed Malcolm Jenkins, he was 27 years old. Like it's not the 27 still young. You can still get 4 or 5 solid years out of this kid. So how much would it cost to get Budda Baker? I don't know. Second round pick seems rich because you have to pay them. You have to pay the kid after, because his contract, the way it's set up, he has got like a $17 million cap hit in 2023 and 18 in 2024, something like that. Like he's going to be an expensive player. So whoever signs or trades for Budda Baker, you're going to want to extend him or restructure that contract. So the Cardinals are going to have to give some leeway into how much like the compensation that they get for him. So I think maybe a 3rd round pick, maybe even a 4th, but a 2nd or 1st seems really rich in my eyes for Budda Baker. Yeah, he
would like decide, because Desai is going to blitz even less than.
We were laughing at work about the Gannon thing. Like, I don't know if you saw the clip of him with Rondale Moore where he's like the pew pew pew. Like, I don't know, Gannon just like
I'm seeing more of his personality now that he's a head coach, and I'm confused about how that all got kept under wraps here as a defensive coordinator in Philly. He is an odd dude for sure.
Yeah.
But being aggressive, going out and getting a guy like Budda Baker, that you still also need to be aggressive around Jalen Hurts in the offense as well. So do you use your future assets to get like Budda Baker, solidify that defense, and then target offense with this draft class, or do you use this draft to solidify the defense and worry about just tinkering with the offense a little bit? Because I still think the offense needs work at this point. I still think I'm not sold on the Bijan Robinson thing. It's a hot topic, but you need a slot wide receiver. You still need more on this offense, and you don't want a Carson Wentz having issues on the offense around him. You want Jalen Hurts to be able to succeed.
Yeah, so the thing that Eagles fans need to understand with the NFL draft, the NFL draft is not a place you go to target certain positions. You use the NFL draft to build long term. So get your draft board set like every team does, and stick to your board and pick the best players available. That's the thing that's the little push and pull with the roster right now and the draft, is because the Eagles have a few holes that you could immediately plug and play guys. I think edge rusher is one of those, linebacker is one of those, safety is one of those. You can even put tight end, wide receiver into that bucket. But I don't think they're going to go into this draft, and they shouldn't go into this draft thinking we need to target certain positions. That's how the Jalen Reagor pick happened.
Right.
Let's remember this. The Eagles went into the draft without a number one wide receiver. Now, of course, they picked the wrong one, but they were forced into focusing on one position group in the first round and say, we need to attack this. That caused problems. Of course, the rest is history. We know they took the wrong kid, and Justin Jefferson's now laying it up in Minnesota. So putting yourself in a position where you're trying to focus on one position group is never a good idea for the NFL draft. Now, having said that, there's a few positions that I would like to see them kind of focus on. First one is running back. I'm all on board with them taking a running back in the first 3 rounds. The Bijan Robinson thing is
you threw that first 3 rounds in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I like how you threw that in at the end there.
Because they have right now they have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. I would love to see one of those be used on a running back. They probably will end up having more than 3 or 4 in the first 3 rounds. I think they're going to trade down at some point. But running back is one I would like to see them upgrade. I like Rashad Penny more than the next guy. I actually, like you said, I didn't predict the Eagles would sign Rashad Penny. I wanted them to sign Rashad Penny. I was big on him in free agency. I thought he was a perfect fit. That turned out to be the right case. So I think like if you drop in a rookie with Kenneth Gainwell, Rashad Penny, Boston Scott, I think you got something cooking there. Let's talk Bijan Robinson here. I don't think they're going to draft him at 10. I had Dane Brugler from The Athletic on my podcast, who's an NFL draft expert. He also said that it's probably very unlikely that they take him at 10. Now, he did mention if you trade down a few spots from 10 to, let's say, 15, 16, and Bijan Robinson's there, and I think the Bijan Robinson thing starts to get some legs here because you garner more mid-round picks where you can take swings on other positions, and then you take Bijan Robinson by pick 15, 16 is probably going to be the highest player on most draft boards, and then you just need to kind of push and pull a little bit with the running back value and whatnot, and is he worth taking there? But I think if they do trade down, he's definitely an option. Bijan Robinson's awesome. Like, I don't want to poo-poo like him as a player. He's one of the most fun players I've watched so far from this draft class. He's one of those guys where you got to watch from like end zone angles and all 22 angles, because when I turned on some of his games, like the Kansas State game, like if you go watch the end zone angle from the Kansas State game, like my God, like his jump cuts are insane. Like he's so fluid with his footwork. He follows his blocks so well. Bijan Robinson's it. He's the man. And I do think that if they do trade down, he's an option. I think picking him at 10 is really rich. The higher you pick a player too, let's remember the more money you pay him. Yeah. So the Eagles are not historically like, they don't like paying running backs. And so the higher you pay him, the higher you pick him, the more money you have to pay him. So I do think the farther he falls down draft boards or falls down the draft board, the more likely the Eagles will take him. I just don't think it's happening.
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it playing out is I kind of feel that like some of these moves, it's not like a few years ago when they were moving back up in the draft before draft day. This is going to have to be like see how the board plays out kind of in my scenario, because you also have the Jalen Carter situation that is sitting there, and he's now officially visited all the teams from 5 to 10, and you have no idea where this guy's going to go. And in my opinion, I was anti Bijan Robinson 100% just because of the 10th slot. I figured somewhere in that 18th through 25th, if you have a chance to get him there, you go for it. But at 10, maybe not. But if Jalen Carter all of a sudden falls there to you at 10, you kind of have to use that pick on someone like Jalen Carter.
Yeah. So I think what I'm going to try to go in Howie Roseman's mind here. I think what the Eagles and what Howie and the Eagles want to do, what I think their favorite outcome would be, is getting Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. Like getting a blue chip defensive lineman, because they're not going to pick a 10. It's probably for the next 3 years, maybe even longer than that. With Jalen Hurts now under center, got AJ Brown, like they're just not a bottom 10 team unless like injuries flail out and whatnot. But this is a very a unique opportunity for a team that just made the Super Bowl to grab like a blue chip player in the top 10. So I think what they're thinking is like if Jalen Carter, Will Anderson fall to, let's say, pick 7. I think 7 is the sweet spot for a trade up, because the Lions are in the same boat as the Eagles. Like they have a luxury pick because the Rams were so bad. They're at 6. They're probably not going to trade out. They're going to take a player there. 7's the Raiders. And if the Raiders don't get a quarterback that they want, and they didn't trade up for the quarterback that they had their eye on, they're probably going to look to maybe skirt out at pick 7. And Jalen Carter apparently is off the Raiders' draft board because the Raiders have just picked like disaster first round picks over the last few years, like Damon Arnett, Henry Ruggs, like every single first round pick that they've drafted has been in some sort of legal trouble, and apparently they don't want that the head case with Jalen Carter potentially. So I think that's like the sweet spot to trade up for Jalen Carter. I don't think Will Anderson's going to be there. I think he'll be the first defensive player off the board. So Jalen Carter, if he falls to 7, I do think the Eagles could be aggressive to go up, because after them is the Atlanta Falcons, Chicago Bears. Take a guess who the 2 worst teams in the NFL last year were at sacks. The Atlanta Falcons, Chicago Bears. I'm pretty sure if Jalen Carter falls there, one of them's going to scoop him up. The Bears at 9, definitely I don't see him getting past 9, because the first thing that the Bears general manager Ryan Poles did when he became a general manager last offseason, he tried to sign Larry Ogunjobi, a defensive tackle. It's a massive contract. It was like a 4-year, $40 million. It was something, or 3 or $40 million deal, something crazy. And the physical failed, so he ended up not going there. But they didn't address defensive tackle this offseason in free agency. So there's a big hole there, and Ryan Poles has shown that he likes that position, like going after Ogunjobi. So I think that's a position that he would love to fill, and I think Jalen Carter would kind of fit that perfectly. So I don't see him getting past 9. So go to 7, I think would be like their dream outcome, and then you trade out at 30, garner more picks in the mid rounds, and that trade up that you did use, you probably the trade up that you did do, you probably use the 12 draft picks like we talked about from last year. Right. I think that's probably like their favorite outcome. I don't think that's the most likely outcome, but I do think that's what the Eagles and Howie want to do. Just quickly back on the running back thing. Jahmyr Gibbs and Tajay Spears are 2 guys that I really, really like. I just said I had Dane Brugler on, and the one thing that I've been worried about with Jahmyr Gibbs is he worth a first round pick? He's really small. He's undersized. He's only 199 pounds. Those type of running backs, how well do they hold up in the NFL? So he did say that he's worth a top 30 pick, and kind of he's convinced me on like if he's there 30, the Eagles should definitely bite. And then Tajay Spears at a Tulane has become one of my favorite players in this draft. He's so shifty. He's got a little Sean McCoy to him. He's 5'9", 200. He's over 200 pounds. He's got the bigger build. He's awesome, and I had a ton of fun watching him. I think he would fit the Eagles offense very well as well. So those are 2 guys I'd watch out for running back. But there's a lot of running backs. Like there's going to be a ton going in like the mid-second round to the end of the 3rd round where they're just going to be flying off boards.
Oh, I like that. So we got Brenden Deeg here from The Score, NFL news editor there at The Score Double Doink podcast. Obviously, great work. I got to get you out of here because I know you got a hard cap here today. But real quick before you leave, is anything else going to happen between now and draft day? Or is it going to stay quiet like I think it is, and then the moves start happening on draft day? Buda Baker doesn't happen after the first round. The draft is over. Everything happens from draft day on is where I'm looking at right now.
I don't think anything's going to happen until draft day. I would expect the Eagles to be very active on draft day. Like we brought up 12 draft picks in a draft is insane for next year. The teams don't go into drafts with 12 picks. It just never happens. They've got to move some of these picks at some point. So I think they're going to be very active in the trade market. That could be trading up, trading down in the draft, whatever. And then whatever veterans come available. One of my biggest takeaways from this offseason so far is not a lot of talent has moved teams. Like if you just take a look at the rosters before free agency and the rosters after to now, I guess, not a lot has changed. Like what big trade has happened? What big move has happened? Like Derek Carr going to the Saints was the biggest maybe move. Like I don't know. Like what like Jalen Ramsey, the Dolphins. Like what? Nothing really has happened to move the needle yet this offseason. Like compared to last year, right? We had Tyreek Hill traded, AJ Brown traded. Like nothing like that has happened this offseason yet. So I think there's still veterans that are going to be on the trade market that the Eagles can attack. I don't know the exact stats. I wanted to look this up this morning, but kind of rolled out of bed a little slow. I wanted to take a look at how many trades the Eagles have made in previous drafts. I believe 2021 was the only year they didn't make a trade. Like since Howie Roseman has been there, like they are always very active in the veteran market on draft day. And I do think that's going to continue this year. Like I'd expect them to nab some sort of trade. Like Buda Baker would be the high end one, but there's definitely other low end guys that I can see them going. But I don't see it happening before draft days. I think where Howie will bite.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Brenden. We'll catch up again after the draft and later this offseason. But again, everybody check out Brenden Deeg over at The Score there at Brenden Deeg _. Brenden, have a great day, my man.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
Thanks. All right, that was Brenden Deeg from The Score there. We got Jason back in. Jason, I don't know how much you caught of that interview, and we've got about 5, 6, 7 minutes left here in the show. But I want to bring up something that I don't know if you heard him say this, and it really, like he said so much in that interview, and it was very, very informative interview, and I'm going to go back and rewatch it later today. but he said something right around the 48, 49-minute mark of this show that right now the Eagles have that 10th pick, and they're not going to have the 10th pick possibly again, or a pick that high in the draft again for 4, 5, 6 years because of the trade that got us that pick. That's the only reason why we have that pick. It's not like the Eagles are ever going to get the draft in the top 10 again for a long time. So being aggressive with that pick to even move up a little bit to get a blue chip guy like Jalen Carter, someone that could be an anchor, a stalwart on your team for the next 4, 5, 10 years is really, really important. And he kind of swayed me back. Like, I was all for it. If Bijan's there at 10, just go for Bijan at 10. But if you've got the opportunity to use that 10th pick, even if you have to move up a couple spots, like he said, to Oakland at 7, to get a blue chip player, you might not have that opportunity again for the next 3 to 5 years. So you might need to take that opportunity now.
Let's be real. We know that the Eagles are going to be one of the best teams in the league again this year. If you have to move this year's 10 and next year's first, and just say you want to just go all in to get Will Anderson or Jalen, next year's first is going to be around the 30th pick in the draft. So to me, it's a no-brainer. Like, I know people don't like trading first-round picks, but like, if it took that, it probably would take more. But they have 12 picks.
Yeah.
There's a scenario that you could definitely see them go up and get either Will Anderson or Jalen Carter and still get Bijan Robinson, because if you
all these questions, sorry, there's a lot of people that put posts and comments. I was just focused on the Brenden Deeg. Like, they might trade up and trade down. You know, do we like the Nolan Smith? Sure. You might be able to get Nolan Smith at like 25 even. So, like, he said it perfectly. You trade up and then trade back down, then trade back. Like, there's a chance we see 3 trades on draft day from Howie Roseman. You know, moving up from 10, moving 30 back, then moving back into like 20. Like, there's so much that can happen there.
You're going to see, it's definitely something's coming, because as he said.
What do you think there? Like, I mean, he talked about it, not wanting the Carson Wentz thing to happen again and him not having weapons. Bijan Robinson, a wide receiver, you know, surrounding him is great. But every year, I mean, like, do you surround Jalen Hurts, or do you just get something best player available on the board? Because when are you going to have this opportunity again to get a top 5 talent in the top 10 of a draft?
You should always go best player available, and he nailed that by saying the whole Jalen Reagor thing when we went in the draft needing a wide receiver. Yeah. We need a wide receiver. Listen, we know we need defense.
We've done that a few times. What was that one defensive end that we drafted a few years way back? You know, we reached for what?
Barnett.
Or Barnett, the guy that we reached for. He ended up having some health depression and mental issues. Marcus Smith. Yeah, I mean, reaching there. We've reached so many times in the NFL draft. Now's the time to just get that blue chip prospect, the best one on the board.
Yeah. He mentioned trading with the Raiders. I also think that the Panthers would make sense if they were willing to trade out of that pick. I don't know what pick they have. What pick do the Panthers have?
They're like 5. They're gonna take a quarterback. The Panthers most likely there, unless they think their quarterback can fall to 10. They're gonna draft a quarterback. Yeah, I'm all for that. You go all in now, 100%, 110%. And then I saw this comment here. He did compare the one running back, not named Bijan, to Shady McCoy. When I heard the word shady when comparing the two guys, I'm like, okay, give me another shady in the backfield. I'll handle that.
That's actually the kid that Cole Thompson's been talking about.
Okay,
all of that draft stuff. He shared it on our mentions, because when we were saying about the Bijan talk, he threw that out there. Tajay Spears.
Yeah, once I heard him drop Shady's name, I'm like, okay, as long as you don't bring Chip Kelly in to trade him away, you know, 3 years into his career, 5 years into his career, you know, it's all good. I just think there's some great information there. And look, the Sixers are in the NBA playoffs. The Phillies, are playing right now. I'm just so excited. Like, I did not think today was going to be a Jalen Hurts exclusive show, but it was, because let's put a bow tie on it, Jason. I mean, like the excitement of the Super Bowl wore off, and we're just kind of going through our middling season, off season of football, trying to like talk basketball, trying to talk baseball. We could have talked hockey, but Jalen Hurts just, boom, got dropped right in our lap yesterday, and it was great.
QB1, baby.
QB1 for the next 5 years, that is for sure. Anyway, we're going to wrap up Trending the AM right there, right here on the Philadelphia Sports Network. Again, make sure if you're watching the show on replay, you hit the like button, the subscribe button. Turn your notifications on, drop your comments. I go back, check all comments later on during the replays, or just give me a follow on Twitter at Bearded Knowledge. And with any of your thoughts, questions, comments, I'll get back to you. My man Jason Voorhees here at Mustang3651 for Philadelphia Sports Network. I'm Phil Stifel. Tomorrow we got Zach, who covers the Sixers for Philadelphia Sports Network, joining me. We're going to talk Sixers. We're going to talk Eagles all show long tomorrow. Probably some Phillies as well. For Philadelphia Sports Network, I'm Phil Stifel. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m.